For millions of space enthusiasts across the planet, this is the moment for them that made space exciting again. And frankly, I can't blame them. The first launch of the Falcon Heavy, together with the Starman passenger and the Tesla Roadster that is flying through the solar system now, was an absolutely monumental moment in the history of spaceflight. And the Falcon Heavy, of course, still remains the most powerful rocket on the planet, and almost fully reusable on top of that. I mean, what else could possibly top this as far as being an exciting moment for spaceflight, at least in recent memory? Well, believe it or not, what really got me excited about spaceflight again was this moment, back in 2004, when the scaled composite Spaceship One, which as you can see on the tail became associated with Virgin, became the first commercial ship to reach suborbital flight. And there's Mike Melville, who officially became the first commercial astronaut. This moment, almost 2 decades ago, got me so excited about man's return to spaceflight and commercial enterprises getting human beings into suborbital flight and hopefully to orbit after that. Shortly after this historic moment, when this vessel won the X Prize, which required that the same ship fly back-to-back flights essentially to suborbital space, which this vessel accomplished with flying colors. And look at it spin too. What an amazing flight this was. It was beyond exciting. I'll tell you, it was just a moment where I thought we were on the edge of ordinary people going into space just a few years in the future, with a billionaire like Richard Branson right behind it. It just seemed like Virgin Galactic was going to accomplish this in no time at all. We immediately began to hear stories about Spaceship Two and about how commercial flights for the average civilian passenger were already being pre-sold. Well, maybe not the average passenger. People like Steven Spielberg were rumored to be amongst these first passengers, but nevertheless, it was such an exciting time. But regrettably, it didn't live up to its promise. At least it hasn't thus far. Although, to their credit, Virgin Galactic and now Virgin Orbital has not given up. On the contrary, in spite of a number of initial false starts, Virgin Orbital and Virgin Galactic are still doing their best to push ahead, and not just into suborbital space, because it's obvious now that that isn't enough. Instead, Virgin is setting their sights high, not just for orbital space, but for other planets as well. How? Well, we're going to find all of that out in just a few moments. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of The Angry Astronaut. So, I am a bit rushed at the moment, on my way tomorrow morning for Arizona, where I'm going to be visiting a number of locations, one of which is going to be directly tied into my next video. So stay tuned for that. I hope you'll find it to be exciting, and I'll be covering a topic that I've never covered before there. So I hope that you folks find that enjoyable. And speaking of topics I've never covered before, Virgin Galactic and their associated company that fewer people have heard of, Virgin Orbital. For a lot of folks, as I mentioned in the intro, the most exciting moment of, returning human beings to space, getting people excited about space again, was associated with the launch of the Falcon Heavy and the Starman and all of that. But as I said, for me, it was way back in 2004. And 16 years later, I am still waiting. The world is still waiting for Richard Branson and his brainchild to produce a result, to produce a company that is going to be able to give access, at least as far as suborbital flight is concerned, to the average, well, not necessarily the average person, but perhaps somebody who's at least barely a millionaire, or if somebody's willing to liquidate most of their savings, even a relatively normal person in this country might be able to accomplish a flight, depending on how much they're willing to give up. But really, how is this any different than what Blue Origin has done so far in the last 20 years? Putting folks into suborbital flight just so they can get astronaut wings. Isn't that essentially the same thing? Shouldn't that leave me just as disappointed? Well, as a matter of fact, it doesn't, because Virgin Galactic and Virgin Orbital especially has ambitions beyond this. And they're ambitions that, in my opinion, are very achievable, and ambitions that, in spite of the fact they don't involve taking human beings into orbit, at least not yet, or taking human beings, obviously, to interplanetary destinations, they'll still help out with man's future expeditions into the solar system and exploring other worlds. How is this possible? Well, I'm going to explain all of that to you right now. Regardless of what you might think about Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, you have to understand that Sir Richard Branson is an entirely different type of person, primarily because at the age of 70, he understands that he's not going to live to see a lot of his dreams realized. When you listen to him speak, or especially if you know anything about his personal background, you know that this man lives every moment to its fullest, regardless of what personal risks he might take in living those moments. As a matter of fact, one of the things that distinguishes him from the rest of his billionaire competitors is the fact that, at least it's said, that he's going to be one of the first civilian passengers on Virgin's first commercial flight. And perhaps the most important and critical moment in this journey towards a commercial flight took place in 2018 on the 13th of December, when the VSS Unity managed to surpass the 80-kilometer mark, which is regarded by both the United States Air Force and NASA as the boundary of outer space, at least as far as suborbital flight is concerned. Now, as just about every space enthusiast knows, Virgin Galactic has an original and innovative way of getting to space, and that's by carrying the vehicle to a height of about 45,000 feet with a carrier aircraft called the White Knight 2, and then launching the vehicle from that point using a hybrid engine. The engine itself is actually pretty innovative, being a combination of a liquid and solid rocket. And, and by the way, look at Sir Richard's emotion once the ship passes the theoretical barrier into space. He's a guy who seems just so genuine and isn't afraid of displaying emotion in a public place. But in any event, the engine doesn't have to burn for a very long time, only about 60 seconds, and only has 310 kilonewtons worth of force. And Virgin Galactic can get away with this because they're providing transportation up to a very high altitude in the first place, overcoming a lot of the gravity issues before the engine even fires. Like I say, an innovative approach, even though we've known about it for quite some time. Then once the engine shuts off, the magic starts to happen. And instead of trying to describe this process myself, I'm just going to quote Virgin Galactic directly because they do a lot better job at it. They describe its unique capability to change its shape in space to ensure a repeatable, safe re-entry. By rotating its wings and tail booms upward while in space, the vehicle's stability and rate of deceleration in descent is controlled by aerodynamic forces. This feathering design takes the best from both the traditional capsule and winged space vehicle designs and adds a little magic of its own. The feathering concept is often compared to a badminton shuttlecock or birdie and proves that sometimes the most disruptive designs can emerge from the most humble of origins. I'm sorry, that's just poetry. And I know I'm going to piss off my share of SpaceX fans when I say this, but technically, this moment in 2018 was the first time that human beings had flown into space from American soil since the retirement of the space shuttle. As much as I love the Crew Dragon, the honor of getting into space from American soil first goes to Virgin Galactic. Now, of course, I'll be the first to say that orbit is way more important, but still, as far as Sir Richard was concerned at this particular moment, I think I know how he probably felt, or at least I can guess. Now, if you check out the technical details of this ship, it becomes very clear that this is a space plane and not a space capsule. Just about everything on this ship is controlled by the pilots, from the aerodynamic qualities to its thrusters to just about everything else when it comes to flight is under the control of the pilots. Now, the engine has the ability to automatically shut off and go into abort mode in case there are any problems, but other than that, it's pretty much pilot controlled, and the interior was only just recently revealed back in July of this year, and 6 passengers are supposed to be carried on this vessel in extreme comfort, and I have to say, with a hell of a lot of style. Now, a lot of reservations have already been made on this ship from future astronauts, if you want to call them that, from more than 50 nations around the world, and more than half of those nations have never had a space flight, and out of those that have, a dozen of them have never had a female astronaut. And Virgin Galactic likes to point that out and how they intend to change that situation. Virgin Galactic also points out that fewer than 600 people have traveled above Earth's atmosphere in the entire history of spaceflight, and what their mission is to democratize spaceflight and make it available to everyone. And when you describe suborbital flight with a mission like that, it starts to become a lot more attractive. So just to quickly review the process, the White Knight 2 first takes the capsule up to about 45,000 feet, and by the way, this aircraft is manufactured from the same mold as the spaceship itself, allowing for the possible training of future pilots and future astronauts. It's a pretty neat idea, plus ease of manufacturing. Then the ship is released at 45,000 feet, boosts into space, and then the pilots can provide a view for the passengers. And this gives the vessel a vast advantage over a space capsule, at least in terms of space tourism, because it provides a view of space and the Earth from different perspectives controlled by the pilots, and a view of the moon too, if it should happen to be up at that time. So because you have humans in control and it has a lot more maneuverability, it can provide a much more magnificent view through its large number of windows. And not only do you get to experience weightlessness, but you also get to experience 3.5 G's worth of acceleration provided by this engine, which by the way was originally designed by the Sierra Nevada Corporation, but now is manufactured in-house. However, the development of this sophisticated vessel has been marred by two tragic incidents which have really drawn out the developmental process. In 2007, there was an accident involving the engine, which resulted in the death of 3 employees, and then the VSS Enterprise, pictured here, crashed in 2014, killing one of the pilots. Even though it was found that it was due to pilot error, there was no fail-safe system in place to protect the pilots in case such an error was made, according to the FAA. These two incidents have really delayed the process of developing this ship. However, in my opinion, these two incidents demonstrate something that we have always known. Space is hard and space is dangerous, and there are always going to be casualties along the way. No matter how safe we try to make these things, they involve a lot of explosive fuel and a lot of potential issues, no matter what the design is. And as a result, Virgin has done their very best to make this ship as safe as possible, but we can't expect them to be perfect any more than we can expect perfection out of anybody else. But dangerous or not, since Richard Branson is involved with this, it promises to be a pretty exciting experience. I mean, look at these uniforms and how they advertise them. And by the way, this was done with a cooperative arrangement with Under Armour. And by the way, before you fly, you also receive a 3-day training program teaching you how to handle microgravity and high G-forces. And that training program, incidentally, is handled by a woman named Beth Moses, who in 2019 became the first woman to make a spaceflight on a commercially launched vehicle. And I think it's pretty cool that Sir Richard chose a woman to lead his astronaut training program. It proves that his belief in the democratization of space is not just words. Oh, and by the way, she also was awarded the National Science Foundation's Microgravity Research Award, so she knows her profession as well. Nevertheless, when it comes right down to it, all of this is still just space tourism, as cool as it might be. Is this all Virgin Galactic has to offer? Well, no, not at all. Enter Virgin Orbit, who intends to take the Virgin Galactic model and pump it up on steroids. Essentially, the idea is to have a 747 carry a rocket that weighs over 25 metric tons to roughly the same altitude as the Virgin Galactic spaceship is going to be taken to, and launch it, carrying small sats to orbit. As before, the idea is to defeat the greatest barrier to spaceflight, gravity, by carrying a rocket to a high altitude and therefore requiring less fuel and less thrust to get it to orbit. The first stage has about 75,000 pounds worth of thrust, and it's a 2-stage rocket. The second stage is capable of about 5,000 pounds worth of thrust and multiple burns to maximize its performance. So altogether, this configuration can send about 300 to 500 kilograms into orbit, although thus far they have yet to achieve orbit. But then again, the idea for the company only got started in 2011, so you're not talking about 20 years here. The expected price per launch is under $12 million, but guess what? Virgin Orbit is not stopping there. They also have a plan, and a customer, by the way, to go interplanetary. By adding a third stage to their rocket, they intend to send small sats of about 50 kilograms to Mars or 70 kilograms to Venus. And as I said, they have a customer. A consortium of Polish universities have already gotten together to send a small sat to Mars in 2022. And as many of you probably know, Rocket Lab intends to go to Venus by 2023. There's a space race going on, and nobody's talking about it. And what if this guy ends up winning it, sending the first commercial mission to another planet? He would democratize not only suborbital space, but interplanetary space as well, and that would be something to see. Is Virgin Galactic for real? Hell yeah, they are. So, a number of you might be wondering, why does this guy have such a serious problem with Blue Origin and yet doesn't have the same problems with Virgin Galactic or Virgin Orbital? Well, I hope I've demonstrated to you in the video exactly what Richard Branson is trying to accomplish and how what he's trying to accomplish is really achievable. Now, granted, it is somewhat unambitious, I suppose, from some people's perspective. Jeff Bezos is trying to export all of, mankind's heavy industry off the planet so that we stop polluting this world. That's a massive ambition. And really, given the speed that Blue Origin is progressing at, and I've said this many, many times, it doesn't seem at all possible. It doesn't seem like that's going to be achievable at all within his lifetime, or at least even getting started in a meaningful way. Whereas SpaceX is on their way to Mars. They are taking stride after stride towards a very lofty goal, a very ambitious goal, a goal with a vision. And I can see them accomplishing it. I can't see Blue Origin accomplishing what they're setting out to do, and it makes me suspicious as to what their actual objectives are. All of that having been said, however, this isn't as much about Blue Origin, I hope. Virgin Galactic still has a worthwhile goal, in my view, similar to what Rocket Lab does, to give access to space to not only the average person, at least suborbital flight, but also to smaller space organizations, universities, other scientific organizations and private companies that wish to conduct experiments and send out very small miniaturized probes to other planets. As a matter of fact, they even have a plan, as you saw in the video, to send something to Mars in a couple of years. And I can see them achieving this and achieving it with a very innovative system, a system that got me really excited about spaceflight again way back in 2004. Now, granted, I am disappointed with their lack of progress thus far. 16 years, and they're still not putting commercial flights up, not yet anyway. But at the same time, they do have a very good reason, and that's the fact that one of their missions ended in tragedy, as I briefly mentioned in the video, something that I'm not going to cover much in any of my videos. These people have families. I don't really want to talk much about events like this. But that having been said, Richard Branson has a reputation to uphold as far as Virgin is concerned. I've flown on his airlines. They're a wonderful experience, and he wants safety to be one of the biggest things that Virgin is known for. Therefore, if there's a casualty involved in one of his missions, which unfortunately there was, then a lot of effort had to be put into making Spaceship Two and everything associated with it safe. And I can respect that, I have to say. And that's what differentiates Virgin Galactic and Virgin Orbital from Blue Origin, in my opinion. All of that having been said, we've still got the coffee cup, but it's not going to be here much longer. I hope we only have 1,000 subscribers rather, left to go as of the recording of this particular moment of the video. I am super excited. Thank you so much. 39,000 subscribers. I can't believe it. I'm still in a state of disbelief and super excited. So please subscribe if you haven't already. Throw a like on there. And if you want to support this channel to a greater extent, it's all in the description. So until Virgin Galactic finally achieves what I hope they will achieve, putting human beings into suborbital flight, just to increase the average person's excitement about space. If they achieve that alone, it will be a huge moment for space flight in general. Until they achieve that and everything else they've set out to do, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.